Welcome to Lost and Found No More Secrets with DNA Angels. If you're new to the world of DNA Angels, we are a search angel nonprofit organization on a mission to bring closure and connection to individuals seeking to identify their biological parents via their ancestry DNA results. Whether they are an NPE, meaning not parent expected or non-paternal event, donor conceived or adopted, or they just never knew who their biological parent is. Our goal is to provide guidance and support every step of the way. Join us as we embark on journeys of discovery, compassion, and the profound importance of knowing one's roots. My name is Heidi, and I am a team lead genetic genealogist. Joining me today is my awesome co host, Laura, CEO and Executive Director of DNA Angels, who is just as passionate about digging into DNA mysteries as I am. Hey, Laura, how's it going today?
Hey, it's going really good. I'm really excited about our next guest. He was a client of yours, and you have just been nonstop talking about him. So I'm excited to actually hear all of the details.
Right. As soon as you started talking about this show, he was the first client. So I remember like insistently texting you, Laura, we've got to have Kirk on the show. We've got to have Kirk on the show. So I'm glad that he agreed to join us today.
Yes.
Now let's talk about this
Yes, me
ancestry
too.
kit sale. This is huge. If you have not purchased
Right?
a kit, run. They're going to be flying off the shelf. So they hardly are
Right?
over $79. We found them
They
at Roots
are.
Tech.
And
We found them at Roots Tech for $39, and we stocked up because we realized that this was our opportunity to get them at that price. And the sale is only good through Mother's Day. So once
yep,
this airs, we'll have
yep.
just a few more days to do that.
Right. So they've never been $39. The lowest they've ever been is on Black Friday, $49, and we normally stock up on Black Friday every year. But when we were at Roots Tech, like you said, they were selling them for $39, and I told Amy, I said, grab the credit card, go buy 30 kits, just because we go through a lot of kits here,
Right.
and we wanted to stock up while we could. So when they introduced Mother's Day sale this year, they put it at $39, and I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So they're offering it to the general public for $39. So go get it. It's only good through Mother's Day. Test everybody in your family, and always test the oldest generation.
And I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but they have an extra feature now where you can pay an extra $20 and get that kit expedited. So you get to the front of the list. I know
Right.
Laura has had taken advantage of that on a couple of your cases recently, haven't
Yep,
you?
I've done that on a few. While you're registering your kit, at the end it'll say, would you like to expedite this kit for an additional $19.95? And if you're only paying $39 for the kit, and you bought it at Amazon and saved on shipping, you may as well pay that $20 and go straight to the front of the line, because I'm telling you, a lot of people are buying that kit right now. They're probably feeling like it's a Black Friday sale at Amazon right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that people need to understand why we need these ancestry DNA kits. What is the purpose of us purchasing these DNA kits for our clients?
Well, we do it to target, test, or verify a conclusion. Sometimes a case is hard. It's harder to solve than others because there's not a lot of matches, but we're able to narrow it down to a specific line in a family. So we don't know which line the parent is actually coming through. So we will offer to test each line. And so that's why we need the kits.
Right, and they're expensive, so that's why we have special fundraisers throughout the year. And without the help of our clients, we wouldn't be able to provide those kits. So very
Absolutely.
much
And
value.
we do accept donations from the general public as well. So if you're enjoying Lost and Found No More Secrets, please feel free to go to our website and hit donate today. And, $39 will get a kit for one of our clients. We would really appreciate it.
Right. So with that being said, because I really, really want everybody to hear Kirk's story, I'm so excited about it. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction into his story, and then we'll bring him on. Today, we're joined by Kirk, whose life story is as intriguing as inspiring. Born in October 1906 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Kirk's entry into the world was marked by abandonment in a grocery store parking lot, with nothing but a note and a hastily tied umbilical cord to provide clues to his origins. Taken in by the authorities and placed in a foster home, Kirk's early days were filled with uncertainty. Raised in a loving adoptive family, he couldn't shake the feeling of being different from his siblings, with his dark features and tan skin contrasting starkly with the red hair and fair complexions of his siblings. It wasn't until he was 9 years old that Kirk learned the truth about his adoption, sending him on a lifelong quest to uncover the missing pieces of his identity. Despite the comfort and level of his adoptive family, Kirk's longing to connect with his biological roots has never waned. For the past 5 years, Kirk has turned to platforms like Ancestry in search of answers, hoping for a breakthrough. His journey is a testament to resilience, hope, and the enduring quest for belonging in a world filled with unanswered questions. Join us as Kirk shares his story, reminding us that even amidst life's uncertainties, the search for truth and connection is a journey worth embarking on. And before we introduce Kirk, I want to say one more thing. You have to stay tuned because at the end of the show, we are going to be doing a giveaway. Laura and I love prizes and games. We always have a trivia night within our organization for our volunteers. So stay tuned because we will be doing that at the end. Hello, Kirk.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, would you like to say?
Thank you so much for allowing us to hear your story. It's
Well, thank you for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about your family structure and what it was like growing up for you.
Well, I have two older sisters and an older brother, and they are like 6, 7, and 8 years older than me. And my father was a Methodist minister, and my childhood was, just as normal as everyone else. A lot of church functions, obviously, Sunday churches, a lot of picnics, holidays at the church, family times. I mean, I remember as a child, of course, Christmas time and doing the Christmas tree, and Easter, all the holidays, Thanksgiving. Got to remember this is 50 years ago, so the memory is not as good as it once was. But looking back, I remember, watching Wizard of Oz, being scared with my brothers and sisters, and Christmas time was the Christmas shows, with Rudolph, and opening Christmas presents, and family vacations, and it just seemed like a normal life. Very busy with the church and elementary school, and on sporting, baseball teams and Boy Scouts, and just doing the normal things, the typical, young child boy, riding the bike up and down the street, and Halloween, trick-or-treating, typical normal life.
That's awesome.
And when I was about 9 years old, I remember just kind of always looking at my family and kind of looking at them and wondering, why am I so dark skinned looking, and they're all fair skinned sisters with, red hair, freckles, and everybody was light skinned. And then there was me. And, back then, a 9-year-old wasn't as smart as a 9-year-old is today, obviously. And I eventually asked my parents, why do I look different than them? Or why does nobody look like me?
Right.
And I guess at that point was the time when my parents were maybe forced to come out and tell me the truth, or that I was adopted and I wasn't, their real child. And I remember from that point on how kind of my perspective of family and life kind of changed, and in my eyes. And kind of the story that I've been told, and maybe what very little information that I have about myself as a child. I was born in October of 1966, not born in a hospital, they're assuming, because my umbilical cord was so messed up and damaged and tied up with unknown, things. So they knew I wasn't born in a hospital. And someone found me wrapped up in a blanket or a towel in a shopping cart in a grocery store parking lot in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I was about a mile, looking back and researching it and finding the parking lot, it was about a mile away from the University of Michigan football stadium in Ann Arbor. And I was turned over to the police and taken into, I'd say, custody, or taken into the hospital for evaluation to see if I needed any medical attention. The state ended up keeping me as a ward of the state, and then trying to find my parents or family, and that no success with that. And my parents at the time were foster care parents, and they would take children in the house for a short period of time, and then they'd give them back, maybe when the child got better or their parents' problems settled down. And so my parents got a phone call to see if they wanted a newborn child, about a week or two old. So my parents agreed, to take me in. And November 2nd, 1966 is the day that my parents, my adopted parents, received me. November 2nd, 1966. And if I ask my sister, I just asked her this, very recently, and her recollection of the story was, I remember the day they brought you home, and I remember looking at your belly and like, oh my God, what is that? And that was kind of her remembrance of the first time her seeing me, was my belly button looking different than a normal belly button, basically. And so she remembers that day. And shortly thereafter, my mom took me down to the police station. And actually I have the original piece of paper from the newspaper ad. I'll hold up, I don't know if you can see it. That's a picture of me. Can you see it?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the picture of me getting my footprint taken, and my mother and two Ann Arbor police detectives. And they took the footprints and sent them out to local hospitals in the area, in the county, to see if my footprints matched their footprints of a child that was born at the hospital. And of course that never happened. And nobody came forward, showing, hey, my child's missing. Or so nobody contacted the police, looking for a missing child, and the footprint records never matched anything. So my birth date was like an estimated birth date. They don't really know for sure when I was born, but I don't know if it was the doctors or the attorneys or the state workers kind of estimated my birthday as October 22nd, because of, the size of me, maybe the color of my skin, how much hair I had. But so they gave me a birth date of October 22nd, 1966. My birth name is John Doe, and I kept that birth date that name. And here's a copy that I have from, the original court date document. And it says State of Michigan Probate Court, in the matter of John Doe, June 25th, 1968, that the adoption was finalized, and my parents were able to finally change my name to my name, Kirk.
Right.
So that's kind of the beginning story.
I forgot to mention that I was the angel that worked your case. And when I had heard your story, I wondered, and I wonder if you thought the same thing. Where was your biological mother when she left you in the grocery cart? I have a vision of her being in her car, in the parking lot with her eyes on you to make sure that you were found. Have you ever wondered about that yourself?
Yeah, I've obviously I've thought about it, and I think that because I was wrapped up, yeah, it was a little strange of a scenario, obviously, but to be wrapped up and left where somebody would purposely find me very quickly, that probably not what she really wanted to do, but I think at the time maybe her financial issues weren't the greatest, and but yes, I was found very quickly on a probably a 60+ degree warm October day in Michigan, and I always wondered. I guess I would have never made a good detective, but I always wondered that and thought, because I was born near the University of Michigan, and they said I was very small. I was around 6 pounds, probably premature, and just something I always thought that my mother was a college student who got pregnant in college, and back in the 60s, it wasn't very good to have a child out of wedlock, and here I thought maybe my mother had me and didn't want mom or dad to know that she was pregnant and had a child, and stayed up at school at University of Michigan during the summer classes, and stayed there, and maybe didn't show much, and had me, and maybe nobody even knew about it, family, friends, or anybody, and that's kind of what I had thought because of the location where I was found.
So when you were 9, I'm sorry if you already said this. Did your mom give you, your adoptive mom, did she give you the full story, or did she just tell you that you were adopted and waited later to tell you the full story?
They kind of told me in the beginning that I was adopted, and kind of left the story at that. And I think asking them, why do I look different than the rest of the family? Why does nobody look like me? And I think they told me that at an early age. I might have forced the issue to have them tell me, and then maybe a year or two later, I think is when they kind of said, hey, he's getting a little bit older now, we really need to tell him the real story, and let him work it out or figure things out, or he has to know the real truth, not just a little bit of the story. He needs to know the real truth. So, but when they did tell me that, I guess it was a kind of, I don't want to say a slap in the face, but it was a shell shocker. And yeah, when somebody says out of the blue, yeah, you're adopted, your mind starts kind of wondering and thinking, okay, well, what's going on? Why was I adopted? But then when it turned to being abandoned,
right,
and then the feeling turned more to the feeling of not being wanted, not wanted, not loved, and I guess that was a part that through my life kind of bothered me.
Right, I can see that. Just being adopted on its own comes with its own set of feelings that why was I given up? But then your story even gives a whole different layer to why was I left in the parking lot. Opens up a whole nother scenario, and yes. I can imagine that was really hard for you to struggle with.
And I think growing up, when I found that out, I mean, I remember kind of like after that, for I don't even know how many months, or maybe even a year or more, just kind of in a fog, walking around and maybe looking at people, or I'd look at a 30-year-old or 35-year-old woman walk by, and I'd look at her and I'd look at her facial features and her skin tone, and is that my mom? Or there goes a guy, with dark hair or dark colored skin or my height, or is that my dad? And just kind of always the thinking and the wondering, Is that my mom? Is that my dad?
Right. Even though you had this amazing family, and it sounds
Correct.
like you had the apple pie, all
Yes.
American family growing up. Even though you had that, there was a part of you that was still longing for a biological connection.
Yes, correct. Yep. And I think, through the years, I think in my late 20s, obviously I always thought of, okay, where's my, obviously my mom, I can't go to the local courthouse or the local hospital and say, hey, my parents got divorced when I was 10 years old and my dad moved to Texas and here's my dad's name, here's my dad's former address and his social security number. I was like a ghost, and I couldn't, I had no names to go off of to research anybody. And I guess in my 20s and 30s, I just kind of accepted it. I knew I was adopted, knew that I had a family out there somewhere. And obviously they weren't really searching for me, looking for me. And I just was kind of content with it. But I always knew in the back of my mind that, I have a family out there, and one day that I wanted to meet them. And I have one child of my own. And I kind of look back at it and just kind of thought to myself, hey, this is my child and I love him to death. And how could I give up my child? Or if I never even knew my child, but I knew he was out there and I had to live with that secret or that information or that story for not a week or a month, but for 50 years, that would eat me up inside.
Right.
And having that feeling of, where's he at? And that's kind of what I always thought of is, where's my mom? What does she look like? And through my life going to doctors for 45, 50 years, especially the last 40 plus years, I'd go to a doctor, okay, your family history. And it's always like, I'm adopted. I have no family history. End of question. And I always wanted to find out, obviously, some medical history issues, whether it's diabetes, cancer, heart attacks, or anything like that. And of course, most people, they want to know their family medical history. But I think with me, a part of it was I wanted to know that. But I think later on in life, it was more I wanted to find my mom, to see her, to talk to her, and just to let her know that it's okay. And I survived and I am okay. And it was a tough situation, and I understand and I forgive you. And just because that's the burden that I would have felt as a parent. Like how could I live? I mean, how could I live and go that many years without knowing? And so that was one of my pushes and one of my desires, to find my mom, and of course my dad, but more my mom. And
right, she was the one that carried you, for
Correct.
the 9 months. So that people are always more inclined to want to know who their mom is.
yes.
So let's talk about that. The next stage of your story would go to deciding to take a DNA test and actually actively look for your mom. So can you tell us about that?
Well, it started probably when my late 30s, early 40s. Of course, it was still on my mind, still wondering. I ended up writing numerous TV shows about my story, hoping that somebody would grab my story, get me on a TV show, talk to me, or maybe show me somebody or tell me somebody that could help me, and somebody that maybe had a tip, or somebody that was this great detective that could find this. And of course, nobody took my case. And I remember back in 2011 that I went to a psychic, and of course I was kind of in a little bit of disbelief, like, sure, okay, I'll just go see what they have to say. And I remember this little old lady. She looked just like the old lady from the movie Poltergeist. I think it was her, actually. And you've probably got to be about 40 years old or better to remember this old lady from the show. But I sat down in her basement, and here I'm a little skeptical about the whole situation and what she's going to say. And I sit down, and the very first comment out of her mouth was, "There's two spirits in the room with us right now, and the one spirit," and she talked about how he died, how he passed away, and that was my grandfather. Clearly 100% my grandfather, how he passed away. And then the other spirit was, he wishes he was able to be with you, watch you grow up, and spend time with you. Well, I kind of thought that maybe that was my grandfather, because I never met my grandfather. He passed away before I was born. And so that's what I thought this psychic was talking about. Somebody that wanted to see me, spend time with me, and watch me grow up. I thought it was my grandfather. And very next words were, "Do you know someone by the name of Rudy?" And
you never told me this.
I looked at her and I laughed, and I said, "No." And of course, I was kind of a smart ass probably. And I kind of looked at her and I said, "No." I go, "But I've watched the movie Rudy, about the Notre Dame football movie Rudy." And then she hesitated. And then she says, "Well, what about Ron?" And I says, "Oh yeah, I know a Ron. I have an Uncle Ron." And then that was the end of it. Well, here I'm writing notes down, and I have the name Rudy circled down. And so we go on a little bit more throughout the session. She brings up about my family, that I'm adopted. She says, "Well, I see you're adopted." And she says, "Well, you have 2 brothers, 2 sisters, but I also see more." And, that really didn't hit me too hard, because maybe that was just a general question, a general statement. And so then that was 2011. 2018 or 19, I think, is when I signed up for, I did 23andMe and Ancestry. I did both about the same time. And I remember, this is my chance. I don't know how new the DNA testing was at that time. And this is my chance. And I'm going to take this test, and I'm going to find my parents, and I'm going to find my family. And my text message or my email beep would go off on my phone, and my heart would start racing, and I'd grab it, and I'd open up the phone, and I'd look, and it's my 6th cousin. And then a couple days later, it was my 3rd cousin, my 5th cousin, my 8th cousin. And then after about 500 family members, well, it really didn't go very far. And I started I got some second, 3rd cousins, and I started sending messages out to them, kind of asking them, "Hey, who are you?" And "Hey, my name's Kirk, and I'm adopted," and maybe even a 1st or 2nd cousin. And the response would be, "Well, I'll ask my mom, or I'll ask my Aunt Edna if she knows who you are." And my response to them, and maybe they just didn't understand it, but I'm like, I'm kind of a ghost. My name doesn't exist on anybody's tree.
Yeah.
And you can ask your mom, your dad, your aunt, your grandma about me, my dad, my mom, and my uncle, and they don't know who I am, and nobody does.
Right.
Because my name, whether it's John Doe or my adopted name, doesn't land on their family tree, because they don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a weird feeling, trying to talk to these people. And it was, not saying frustrating, but I can't talk family swap with people when they don't know who I am and what family I'm from and what my dad, my uncle, my grandma, I have no history. So
Absolutely.
I'm kind of going into this whole thing blindfolded and telling these people that I don't know who I am. I'm adopted, and my name, nobody in your family is going to know who I am or any of my family members.
Right.
So then I found I got matched up with a first cousin. Well, obviously a first cousin's pretty high on the list. Yeah. And I reached out to him and I sent him this 500-word story, and he never responded back. And of course I waited, and then I had a couple other first cousins instantly pop up after that, and I contacted them and I asked them, hey, did you talk to, is this relative on your list too? Let's say relative Joe. Is he your first cousin? Yeah, he's my first cousin. Yeah, I contacted him last week and yeah, we talked for a little bit. And both of these first cousins or second cousins said they contacted him and they had minor conversations, but he wouldn't open my conversation up. And I guess I was not saying I was mad, but it was more like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I get my highest ranking family member on 2 websites with maybe 1,000 family members, and you won't talk to me.
Right.
And I guess I looked at it. Obviously, he didn't want to talk to grandma or grandpa or anybody, mom or dad, about, hey, here's this email I got about this guy, you know, who gave him up for adoption, or who's the dad? And, you know, obviously he didn't want to start any family drama.
So
and
that's probably when you came to DNA Angels, because you realized you needed someone that can kind of have a better understanding of the DNA. And so we got connected, and that's when things really started to roll. So I remember I found your mother's site first. And I even remember when I said, I got it figured out, Kirk, and I showed you a picture. And I remember having the impression that you didn't believe me. I think that you were so hung up on the mom was in college.
College, correct.
I think that I remember, because usually your people are like, I remember your reaction just not being. Yeah.
Well, and I think my sister, I think in July of 23, I reached out. I had a family member, about a 20-year-old young girl, show up on my site as like a first cousin. And so I contacted her. We started going back and forth. We got her mom involved, her grandmother involved, whose grandma's in her 60s. And it gave me a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And I thought, wow, I'm getting close. But nothing finally panned out. And then I kind of went through a little bit of a denial, thinking about it. Like, I got really high on the whole ordeal, the thought of it. And then I kind of came back down and thinking, you know, if I'm 57 years old and my mom had me at 20, that puts her at 77. Most 77 or 70 to 80-year-old people aren't taking this test. And so now I need a brother or a sister to take the test. And that didn't happen either. And so my sister contacted me, I think it was October, I think. She called me and she's like, hey, I saw this thing about DNA Angels. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Okay, I'll try it. I mean, I had nothing to lose. And I thought, hey, maybe they can help me.
Right.
And of course, after 45 plus years of having the highs and the lows, and I guess I was a little, maybe not discouraged, but okay, I'll try, see what happens. And I remember calling you and you asked me, you know, hey, tell me a little bit of your story. And I'll never forget. I said yes. You said yes, you'll do it, and I agreed. And I got in my car and jumped in my truck, and I was heading out to my property a couple hours away. And seems like instantly my phone was dinging. And as I'm driving down the road, my phone's going off, and next thing you know, I have a picture of my mom and her obituaries, and now it shows, hey, you've got 3 brothers and a sister on your mom's side, and I'm, swerving on the road looking and sending my family members pictures, and it was just emotional, and it happened so fast. And then I think the next day you sent me pictures. Hey, we found a picture of your dad. This is your dad. You sent me a copy, I think, of his military draft. And when I got it, I looked at it, and I looked at his draft card, and I looked at it, and I looked at his name, and I went right back to the psychic from 2011. And she asked me if I knew someone by the name of Rudy. And that was my father's name. And he passed away in 2011.
Oh,
You had never told me that part.
wow.
That is, I have goosebumps. That's amazing. I never knew that.
I do too.
So we also
Wow.
I had him upload. He didn't have the best matches. You didn't have any first. I don't remember you having any first cousin matches. I mean, you did. Ancestry gives you a prediction, and it can be different. But I had him upload to, I believe it was Family Tree DNA, and he had a half brother match on
Yes.
FTDNA for his father's side. So we got
So-
really lucky.
So my half
Awesome.
brother. So my half brother,
His also name is Rudy.
also Rudy, and he took the test on another site, and because me and him were not on the same site, we may have never connected if it wasn't for DNA Angels. And I may have never connected with him, or vice versa. So I contacted my brother and Rudy, and he's about 60, and he has a sister about the same age, and he lives about 2 hours from my house. And we several phone calls, and we recently went out and had lunch together. I flew out to California, and I met my half sister, and we talked, and she was like, wow, you really have some of Dad's facial expressions and mannerisms, and I like to laugh, and I like to joke around, and I'd rather smile and laugh instead of be sad.
And now
And
we're able to see somebody that you look like, what you had been longing
Yes.
for your whole life. Like, where did I get this tan complexion from? And obviously,
Yes.
I saw this picture. It was from
Exactly. I got
From
the
Rudy's
dark
side.
skin from my dad's side, and hearing her tell me about her father, our father, and his size and his skin tone and his demeanor and his features. And they both the brother and the sister kind of said that about me. And when I go to my mother's side, I have a sister that's 2 years older than me, and we have the same birthday, and 2 other older brothers that are in their mid-60s, and a younger brother who's like 52. So it's been
same birthday, different year.
That is
yes, same
Yeah.
birthday, different year.
shocking.
And
Assuming
talking
that
to
you
her-
have the correct birthday, though, right? Because isn't your birthday an estimate?
yes, my birthday is October 22nd, was an estimate. And I spoke to her maybe a week or 2 ago, and she said, hey, I was flipping through some old pictures, and I found a picture of Mom holding me, and it looks like I'm maybe 1 or 2 years old, and it looks like Mom's in a maternity shirt. And of course, I asked her, hey, can you take a picture of it and send it to me? And I've been speaking to her for 5 months now, 4 or 5 months. And in the beginning with her, it was obviously a lot of denial and disbelief. And I totally understand where she could be coming from, or where anyone could be coming from in this situation. And I told her, I said, I understand how you're feeling, maybe your emotions. I said, I've had 45 plus years to prep myself or think about this, or So my emotions aren't as up and down probably or as confused as yours are. But she eventually, I got her an ancestry test and she took it. And I kept telling her, I'm like, it's going to come back positive. So, I know we're brothers and sisters, we're half siblings. So, but just when it comes back positive, then you can confirm it and then you'll know 100%. And I think it's been 2 weeks now. It came back positive, and
They
I've
match
spoken
positive. They match at, don't you match around 1900 centimorgans?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a half sibling match.
Yes. And I've spoken to one of the older brothers and about a week or so ago, and I haven't spoken to the oldest one yet. So this is still, very, very ongoing, very fresh.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Kirk, what did you decide what kind of a career did you decide after everything that you're going through with, the investigation of your foundling experience? What did you choose to do with your career?
Well, when I was younger growing up, I was infatuated with money and business finance, stock market. I mean, as a child, that's all I wanted to do was show my parents about, certain company stocks when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And I always wanted to go into business financing, and just something told me that that's not for me. And I had a desire to go into police work and help people. And maybe that was a stem from, the two Ann Arbor policemen helping me and finding me, and just I've always been a giver and a helper. And I did 29 years as a policeman, and I loved it. It was a great job. I would do it again. My favorite thing about the job was talking with older people to listen to what their stories were in life and what to do differently or take their advice. And then the most important thing was young kids, 8, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, the kids that were in trouble. And I, of course, being sent to the high schools on kids fighting, kids stealing, kids in trouble, whatever the situation was with young kids. And I really enjoyed talking to the young kids, helping them. I even told them my story many times. And I said, listen, you got a mom and a dad here that are both working. They're both trying. I'm a parent. I go, being a parent with a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old, it's not easy. I go, this is what happened to my situation. I said, I made something of myself. I turned a negative into a positive, and you can do the same.
Right.
And I really enjoyed my job.
Well, Kirk, your story is such a, I'm still shocked. I'm still picturing the poltergeist lady telling you, Rudy, you never told me that part. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
The one thing that I'd like to kind of follow up with, one thing about my adopted mom that I have to give her kudos. And I have 2 birthdays. My October 22nd birthday is my celebrated birthday. And my other birthday, or my other celebration date, is November 2nd, 1966. So every November 2nd for, I'd have to guess, 25 years, she calls me and always says, do you know what today is? Today's the day that you came into our family, into our life. And I appreciate it. And I know that she loves me, and I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't change my childhood. I've been very blessed. But there's always that uncertainty of what my life would have been like with that adopted family or with my original family, and what my life would have been like with my brothers on my brother, sister on my dad's side, or what my life would have been like with my mom's side siblings. And
unfortunately, we didn't say this, but unfortunately, both of your biological parents were deceased.
Correct.
Whenever we solved your case. But
yes,
you did get some siblings. I've seen pictures of your brother Rudy and you on Facebook. It melts my heart, to see that. And I'm so excited that I was.
Yep.
Your case was one of those cases. Every once in a while we'll get a case that kind of keeps us up at night whenever it's not a quick and easy solve. And that was one of your cases. I was just 100% gonna have to solve this case and find
Yes,
it.
yeah, and that's kind of the I was like I said, I was in disbelief, and yeah, sure, they're gonna find them, sure, and as I was driving down the freeway, my phone was going off, and I was kind of in shock, disbelief. I couldn't believe it, and it happened so fast, and now it's just taking the time and going through the emotions and reconnecting with them and asking them, hey, do you have any memories of me? Did you ever see me? Did you know that mom was pregnant? Or, you know, what can you tell me? And yeah, I'm not going to get every answer that I'm looking for. And obviously my ultimate goal was to see my mom and give her a hug and tell her that it was okay.
Yeah.
What
It leaves me
another-
wanting so much more. Like, I'm just absolutely shocked that your mom already had children and then had a child after she gave birth to you and put you in a shopping cart in a grocery store parking lot.
Yes.
I'm dumbfounded by that. Although, you know, it makes my mind go to places. You know, you said that your mind went to, you know, maybe she couldn't afford another baby. I can tell you that I have worked multiple foundling cases myself, where the baby was in similar circumstances. One was found in the back of a van, almost dead. The other one was found at a grocery store parking lot. Again, I can tell you in those situations, one mom was in danger. The mom was alive when we found her. And she would give us bare minimum information because she felt like she was still in danger if this baby was known about. But she said that, you know, it was a very dangerous situation. If my, you know, husband would have known I was pregnant, then, you know, our lives could have ended. So I got that. And then the other one, mom never would admit she was the mom, but we did reunite with the dad. And he's like, I knew it. I knew she was pregnant. And she told me that she lost the baby. So, you know, you never know what the story is going to be. So I'm just so glad that we were able to get you answers.
Some of the stories from some of the people that I spoke with really like kind of blew my mind. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, your dad didn't want you, or you didn't even know who your dad was, or, you know, everybody's story is different. And whether it's, you know, the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, every scenario is different. And I couldn't imagine the stories. I mean, just probably the 4 or 5 stories that I heard from people were like, wow, that's just a crazy story. And I'm sure you could go on and tell hundreds of stories. And I'm sure hearing these stories and doing what you guys do and reconnecting people and finding things out for people, that it has to give you a different perspective of life.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
It really, really does.
And it probably gives you a lot of self-satisfaction. And that's kind of how I felt with my job, dealing with younger people and helping people. And it was
Making a difference.
Making a difference in the self-satisfaction that I know for a fact in my career, I help people, I change people's lives. And 10 years after I dealt with a person, this young kid came up to me and he said, do you remember me? And I says, no. And he goes, well, you did this for me and you did that. And now I'm in college and I'm going to the FBI Police Academy.
Oh, wow.
And so I just helping young kids and giving them a chance, giving someone a second chance in life. And I guess I'm very blessed and very thankful that you guys did what you did for me. And you found, you know, I may never have gotten my answers or found my family or any history about me. And you know, I came to you guys and you found it. And I'm very fortunate and very blessed that, you know, that happened. And we'll see what the future brings with, you know, all my siblings, half siblings now, and see what kind of relationship that we can have and go from there.
Well, we wish you the absolute best, and you have to promise me that you will keep me updated, because you know I'm very invested in your story.
Yes.
And so you know how to reach me. So please keep me. I love pictures. So send me pictures and keep me updated.
Okay. And I just tell people that are out there in any situation, just hang tight, stay strong. Obviously, you might not figure your story out in a week, a month, or a year. And mine took 45 plus years of thinking and wondering, and it finally happened. And I know some information now, so just hang tight. It's an emotional roller coaster, and take it day by day, and it's a slow process sometimes.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Kirk.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate everything you guys have done.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Give me just a moment, Heidi.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Wow.
So rewarding.
I did not expect that. So I did not know his whole story.
Well, I'd given you tidbits of it, but not the entire story.
Yeah.
I know when he told me about the Rudy thing, my jaw was like, "What? You never told me about that." So yeah,
Right.
that's pretty cool.
Sorry.
Cool.
There we go. I'm messing with the camera. I had a really close update on up close on us. Good job, Heidi. I know that probably kept you up at night. And although you probably solved it in 24 to 48 hours, you're like, I am not going to stop until I figure this out.
I think the mom took me about 20. I remember that I was dealing with Polish immigrants. And so it was a little, so I think the mom took me probably about 48 hours. And then it took 5 days for the upload to happen for Family Tree, and then I saw the half brother match. So I think it all took me about a week. I was so happy to have that case solved.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's tell our viewers, first of all, thank you for watching. But we've got a contest. We have books. We have tons and tons of books. And like you can see all the books from the community behind me, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But Heidi and I were talking last night, and we want to have a contest. So if you will like our video, like our post, and make a comment, just comment, enter to win, or make a comment about how you feel about Kirk's story. Anybody who likes and comments will be entered into a jackpot. And before the next episode airs, we will draw a name and notify you in the comments that you won. And you may pick a book of your choice from our website. So on our website, we have a ton of books that we recommend. The link will be in the description, and you can pick whatever book you want. And we will send that to you as a thank you for liking our video and leaving a comment.
And we're going to do this every episode going on.
Every episode. For the next little bit. Obviously, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, for the next few episodes, absolutely. And Heidi, I said that I wanted to.
I'm excited about hearing this. You've been talking about this, but you haven't read it to me.
Well, no, I'm going to start a new series on TikTok about, funny or outrageous obituaries. And so I found one, and I just wanted to kick off the TikTok show or series with this obituary. So thank you for, giving me a few moments. So we came across this one the other day. One of the angels shared this with me. It's for Herman McGee. And you just always got to be careful how you are. Herman McGee, 82 of Maryville, ended his lifelong hobby of being stubborn on Saturday, February 19th, 2022, by passing in his sleep at home. He was the son of Bart and Gladys McGee, a graduate of Greenback High School and Hiwassee College. In 1963, he joined the Air Force National Guard, where he later graduated from Aircraft Mechanics School. He retired from Greenback Industries in the late 1980s to work on his farm, where no one could boss him around. He loved hunting and fishing as much as he loved women and giving people a hard time. Herman liked his roads like he liked his hooch, smooth. He liked his cars slow and his women fast. He had many wives, though few were his own. He was a self-professed expert at everything, and his love of the four-letter word was only exceeded by his love to supervise people. Herman was preceded in death by his parents, Bart and Gladys McGee, and majority of his friends because they wanted to beat him to the end so they didn't have to hear him brag about getting there first. He leaves behind a stepdaughter, Becky, whom he gave more hell than she knew what to do with, as well as one granddaughter, Emma, who he taught to argue at a very early age. He's also survived by his two mutts and a handful of friends, including Wildman, who was always there for him even when he was ornery. Herman requested no services or memorials because he did not want a preacher to lie about him and have people crying over him. A celebration may be held at a later date, since he always did like to party. In lieu of flowers or plants or anything like that would most likely die due to neglect, the family requests any donations be made in his memory to Shriners. Bring food and continue to tell stories he is no longer around to tell. Arrangements by blah, blah, blah. I just thought that was the funniest.
I love that. Now, did you come across that in your own when working a case? Is that how you found that obituary, or did you just?
Well, okay, so the craziest thing was, so we have this family room on Messenger, right? Where all of the volunteers, we have almost 100 volunteers with DNA Angels. We all get in there, we kind of chit chat about different things, and sometimes we, find something interesting in a case that we're working. And Lori had found an interesting death certificate. Like these are the rabbit holes we go into. She had found an interesting death certificate, and the man had died by falling into a meat grinder production machine at a box factory that he was working at. And I don't know if you saw the conversation that night. So one thing turned into another, and we were all talking about these crazy like death certificates that we've seen, or articles that we've seen where people died, in crazy ways, which turned in then to funny obituaries. So that's where I got it. Someone in the family room sent me that. And so I said, you know what? Let's do a series. Obviously it would be a little bit morbid to do a series on TikTok about, death certificates and how people die in meat grinders and, chainsaw accidents and stuff like that. But we could probably get away with, funny or outrageous obituaries. There was an obituary that I saw one time where two kids of a mom who pretty much abandoned them left an obituary about the mom and, their heartfelt feelings about the abandonment and her as a mother. And I thought, be careful, you reap what you sow. Be careful what you do in life, because it can come back to get you in the end. So I'm just going to start a TikTok series with that.
Well, I think it would be cool if anybody, and whenever, if any of our viewers during your own genealogical research come across any cool obituaries, email them to Laura.
Yeah.
And
Laura at DNAangels.org, and maybe I'll read it on the show one day.
Yes. Can you put your email address on the?
I will. In the description. And if you have any questions, please just email me as well. I am the founder and executive director of DNA Angels. And if I can't answer you or I don't have time, I will absolutely get you directed to the right person within our organization to take care of you. Yeah.
Right. Well, we are right about at an hour. It's been a great show. I'm looking to the next one.
I am too. Well, thank you everybody for watching.